Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. It's a tale that explains so much about our world, from the diversity of languages to the nature of human ambition and divine authority. So, grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's journey back to the ancient land of Shinar. To truly understand this story, we have to rewind the clock. Picture the world just after the Great Flood. Humanity has been given a second chance. The intention was for humanity to spread out, to cultivate the entire planet, and to live in relationship with Him. In these early days, something remarkable united all people. They spoke a single language. The Bible tells us they had the same words. Everyone could understand everyone else perfectly. They were one people, living together in the plain of Shinar, which we now know as ancient Mesopotamia. This unity, this shared speech, created a powerful sense of collective identity and strength. It was a unique moment in human history, a blank slate filled with immense potential. This period of shared existence and a single tongue is the crucial starting point for the incredible events that were about to unfold. As these people settled, and their population grew, a new idea began to take root. They weren't content with simply living and spreading out as God had instructed. They said to each other, "Come, let us build ourselves a city, with a tower that reaches to the heavens." This wasn't just any construction project. This was a statement. The city was meant to be a central point of human power and civilization, a place to gather and consolidate their strength. And the tower was the centerpiece of their ambition. The phrase "reaches to the heavens" is key. It wasn't just about height, it was about aspiration. They wanted to touch the divine, to ascend to the realm of God, not through worship, but through their own effort and ingenuity. They wanted to build a monument so grand that it would defy the forces of nature and time. More than that, they had a specific goal in mind. It was about achieving fame, glory, and a legacy that was entirely their own. They wanted to be remembered for their greatness, to be the masters of their own destiny. So, what was really going on in the hearts of the people of Shinar? Let's break down their stated goal, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth. This is a direct contradiction of God's command to fill the earth. They heard God's instruction to scatter and multiply, and they decided to do the exact opposite. They wanted to huddle together, to create a centralized bastion of human power that would prevent them from being scattered. Why? Fear might have been a factor. The world was big and unknown. They believed that their unity, their technology, they had learned to make bricks. They were essentially saying, "We don't need to follow God's plan. We can create our own. We will secure our own future, on our own terms." The tower was a monument to human achievement, a symbol that they could reach for the heavens by their own strength. This is a classic example of humanity trying to usurp God's authority, to put themselves in the place of the Creator. They were building a legacy of self-reliance and independence from God, which, in the biblical worldview, is the very definition of rebellion. Their unity was not being used to serve a higher purpose, but to fuel their own ego and defy the divine will. Now, it's important to understand that God is not against building, innovation, or unity. But He is against prideful rebellion that seeks to displace Him. The story tells us that the Lord came down to see the city. It's not that God didn't know what was happening from His heavenly throne. This anthropomorphic language, God coming down, is used to show His personal, deliberate inspection of the situation. He is taking a close look at their motives, their hearts, and the trajectory of their actions. He sees a united people, using their shared language and abilities for a singular, defined purpose. He says, "Behold, the people are one, and they have all one language, and this is only the beginning of what they will do. And now nothing that they propose to do will be impossible for them." This is a powerful statement. God acknowledges their potential, but He also sees the danger. This power, fueled by pride and unchecked by divine wisdom, would lead them down a path of ever-increasing arrogance and godlessness. If this was just the beginning, what would they attempt next? And God, in His wisdom and sovereignty, knew that this path would not lead to human flourishing, but to their ultimate ruin. He decided that He had to intervene, not out of jealousy, but to save humanity from its own self-destructive pride. So, how did God respond to this monumental act of defiance? He said, "Come, let us go down and there confuse their language, so that they may not understand one another's speech." Notice the plural "let us," which many theologians see as an early glimpse of the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit in council. God's solution was to dismantle the very tool that enabled their rebellion, their single language. Imagine the scene. The next moment, the words that come out of his mouth are complete gibberish to the person standing next to him. The architect tries to shout instructions from below, but his commands are heard as a meaningless cacophony of sounds. Communication, the foundation of their project and their unity, instantly broke down. Frustration would have turned to suspicion, and suspicion to conflict. This act wasn't just a punishment, it was a profound act of divine wisdom. He was addressing the root of the problem: their prideful, centralized unity. The very thing they feared, being scattered, was now the inevitable outcome of their inability to communicate. It was a precise and powerful intervention that changed the course of human history forever. With communication shattered, the grand project was doomed. The dream of a tower reaching the heavens, the symbol of their self-glorification, was left unfinished, a permanent, stark reminder of their failed rebellion. The name of the place became known as Babel, which in Hebrew sounds like the word for confused or mixed up. It was a fitting name for the place where humanity's singular voice was shattered into 1,000 different tongues. The people, now unable to understand one another, began to group together with those who spoke the same new language. These new linguistic groups then did exactly what God had originally intended: they scattered. The text says, "So the Lord dispersed them from there over the face of all the earth." What began as a judgment against pride ultimately fulfilled God's original purpose for humanity to fill and inhabit the entire planet. The scattering of nations was not merely a punishment, it was a divine course correction, redirecting humanity back onto the path He had set out for them from the very beginning. The ruins of their tower stood as a silent testament to their folly, while humanity began its diverse and scattered journey across the globe. So what are the big takeaways from this ancient story? The most immediate lesson is about the danger of pride. The proverb "pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall" perfectly encapsulates this story. The people of Babel were brilliant, capable, and united, but their pride led them to defy God, and that defiance led to their downfall. It's a timeless warning that when our ambition is purely for our own glory, we are on a dangerous path. The story also teaches us about the nature of true unity. The unity at Babel was a human-centered unity, built on a shared rebellion against God. It was a fragile, superficial unity that was easily broken. True, lasting unity, the Bible suggests, must be centered in God. This is powerfully contrasted later in the New Testament, at the event of Pentecost, where the Holy Spirit descends and the apostles speak in other tongues, but everyone understands them in their own language. It's like a divine reversal of Babel, God bringing people together in understanding, not through a single human language, but through His Spirit. Babel represents humanity's attempt to ascend to God, while Pentecost represents God's descent to humanity to create a new kind of spiritual family. Finally, the story of the Tower of Babel is a powerful reminder of God's sovereignty. The people of Babel thought they were in control. They literally said, nothing that they proposed to do will be impossible for them. But they were wrong. Their grand scheme, which they believed would secure their name and future forever, was thwarted with a single divine act. It shows that no human plan, no matter how ambitious or clever, can ultimately succeed if it stands in opposition to the will of God. His purposes will always prevail. This isn't meant to be a discouraging message, but a reorienting one. It teaches humility and dependence on a Creator who sees the bigger picture and whose wisdom far surpasses our own. The unfinished tower is a permanent symbol that true greatness and lasting legacy are not found in building monuments to ourselves. The story of Babel is so much more than an ancient myth about languages. It's a deep reflection on the human condition, our tendency towards pride, and our deep-seated need for a purpose greater than ourselves. It reminds us that our greatest achievements are hollow if they lead us away from our Creator. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of the Tower of Babel. If you enjoyed this video and want to dive into more stories like this, please hit that like button. And be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next video.